Hello and welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment. If you can see and hear me, please drop your location in the chat. And welcome to another awesome session in Fantasy Writers Week Day 3. All right, I see a lot of you dropping in there. I see Illinois, South Carolina, UK, Texas, Canada, New Jersey, London, Oklahoma, Atlanta, the Netherlands, Wales. All right, it's so nice to see such an international audience. We always love seeing that. Jamaica, Toronto, Ontario. All right, it sounds like you can hear and see me just fine. So we are going to go through just a couple of housekeeping items. Welcome, my name is Michelle from Pro Writing Aid, and we are so glad to have you here with us again today. Before we get started, just a few brief notes. First, you can access the Fantasy Writers Week replays by going to the Hub page, and replays are available for everyone to view until March 10th. So you have an entire week after the events have ended to catch up or to rewatch sessions that you really liked. And then after that, they will be available for Pro Writing Academy members only. If you would like to join Pro Writing Academy, we have a special 50% off offer for you that ends on March 10th. And we also have an offer for 40% off 1 year of Pro Writing Aid Premium that also ends on March 10th. So those are your two big offers from us this week for attending as our thanks to you. And details for both of these can be found on the Hub. If you'd like to keep the fantasy conversation going, we'd love to have you in our private online writing community. Joining is easy. You simply visit the link. It's in the chat also, and I'm going to drop it intermittently throughout the session today. You just log in with your Pro Writing Aid account information. It's simple as that. And then you can hop on over to the live event chat to talk to other attendees. And reminders for today, if you have a question for our speaker, Stephanie BwaBwa, please use the Q&A box. As you can see, the chat does move pretty quickly, and we don't want to lose any of your questions. So you're welcome to use the chat to talk to other attendees today. Be sure to select everyone in the drop-down menu. Otherwise, your messages will just come to us. If you select everyone, they'll be seen by everyone. So with that being said, I believe we are ready to begin. So today we are joined by Stephanie BwaBwa. Stephanie BwaBwa is an Afro-Caribbean Christian romantasy author, universe builder, and creative entrepreneur. She's the creator of Aladel, a universe filled with angels, adventure, romance, and light. You can usually catch her going for a walk through a park or simply binging anything creative with too many snacks. All too relatable, Stephanie. Welcome. It's so nice to have you here.
Hello, party people. I am so excited to be back again. I love Fantasy Writers Week. Is probably one of the highlights for me when it comes to the writing industry. So I am so excited to be back with you guys. Hello, everyone.
We're so glad to have you. I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to you, and then I will be back later for some Q&A.
Sweet deal. Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited to speak to y'all today. And this is going to be a little bit different because I am talking to you guys about building a fantasy universe. That may already have you like, that's a lot. I know. I will do my best to make sure that I break it down for you. And everything that I'm doing, you don't have to necessarily apply this to how you build your world. However, this is how I go ahead and tackle mine. And so I'd like to just share this with you guys. That way, if you're someone that's like, well, I don't want to just create one particular world or one little kingdom where all of my stories take place, but I actually want to create something kind of like a Marvel Cinematic Universe, kind of like a Narnia, kind of like an expansive Lord of the Rings. This will help you because that's how I build. And so for those of you that are like, I'm building more than just a kingdom, a province, just one world, I actually want to create stories in different worlds and then they can all overlap. This is going to be really helpful for you. And so I'm seeing, I have the chat open and I see you guys like flying through here. I'm really excited. I see all of you, Nikki, Abby, Jazz, Chiana, Rose. I see y'all, okay? And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I take care of y'all today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and make sure that we are all good before I go ahead and dive in, guys. I am really thrilled about this because, first off, I love world building, period. That's actually my favorite aspect of writing fantasy. I know people love character development and all of that fun stuff. I am a world builder, period. That's what I love the most. And so I am thrilled to be able to like go ahead and do and just talk about world building on a universal level with y'all. So I'm super excited. I have the chat open so I can keep up with y'all. World building is a hobby and a lifestyle. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so I'm going to talk to you guys about some universal laws of building a fantasy universe. Just let me know, because I do have the chat open to make sure everything is okay. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay? And can you see my slides well? Let me know. Drop a 1 if you can see everything good. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Okay, beautiful. And so let me go ahead. So we're talking about building a fantasy universe today. And this is just a little notice, like y'all, I have no problem sharing my slides just because I'm visual. And I think for all of you guys who are, world builders in here and you love fantasy, you're probably a visual person too. And so because of that, having slides is super helpful with some images, with the information on there. And so I have no problem sharing that with you. Just make sure we only keep that to ourselves. Okay. Just make sure we keep it to ourselves. But you will go ahead. I will be making sure that you get access to these later on. That's all I wanted to share. And then we already talked about just a little bit about who I am. I am an Afro-Caribbean author. That's just the very shorthand way of saying I am Canadian, Haitian, and Congolese. Okay. I am from everywhere, if you will. And so that is who I am. Elodel is something that came to me in like 2015. Actually, I've always been someone that loves more than just one world. Like I love multiple worlds, which is why I've always gravitated to like Narnia, Marvel, that kind of thing. And so around those years, I've been praying a lot, like, Lord, I want to write a story. I want to create something that's like dope. Period. I just wanted to create something that was dope. You know what I mean? And something that people would enjoy, something that I would love to enjoy. You know what I'm saying? And that didn't have like an immediate end. Does that make sense? Like you read a story and it's done, and then you got to move on to something else. I didn't want that. I wanted to create something where it could keep going and going and going. And so that's actually when that idea came to me in 2015. About Elodel. I did not know the name at the time. I just knew like, oh, I want to create an ever expanding universe with all of these Black angels in there, with all of these different stories. And then and sometime in the future, they can begin to overlap. And so now when you read, when you read through some of my books, you can see like these different overlaps in them. And I see some Haitian Americans in the chat. What's up, my people? Yes. Did you live on island? I lived on island for 3 years, 5 to 8. It was great. But anywho, so that is who I am. And today we're going to talk about building out this universe. I tried to break it down as simple as possible because it can get, I'm sure we can all agree that world building can become too much. You know what I mean? Like if you think about all of the things that go into world building, your head could explode. And for me, I saw that a lot of you are pantsers in the chat. I am not with you on that island. I am on the island of plotters, okay? Extensive plotters, okay? Like I need to know all the details. I need to know who, what, when, where, why, how. I need to know present, future, 1,000 years before, like plotter all the way. I need to know. So much so that I have tried to pants, and let me tell you how I nearly lost my mind. I had to go back, sit down, flesh out the story, and then I was able to write it in like a few weeks. So I am a huge plotter over here. And I think if you're going to be extensively world building, even if you are a pantser, you're going to have to plot some things, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting into the story and realizing, oh, well, this makes sense in this kingdom, but that makes no sense in that kingdom, but we're in the same kind of place. Baby, let me tell you right now, save yourself the pain. Okay, save yourself the pain. We're gonna need a we're gonna need to plot a little bit, and that's what I'm here to help you do. And so we're gonna tackle how I flesh out realms, worlds, the species that I use, the powers that I create, and then constructs. Joanna said a few weeks. Yes, a few weeks. I'm a very fast writer. I can write really quickly. If I have my outline, I can write a novel in a few weeks. Or less, to be very honest with you. I think one year I finished NaNoWriMo in like 9 days because I had my outline. And so like less than 10 days in, I was like, I want Nano, okay, we're done. So like once I know what I'm writing, I'm good to go. My fingers are just flying. Which is why, see, this is why I try to win y'all over to the plotting side, because if you know what you're writing, you can write. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we dive into all of these things, realms, powers, all of that, I like to break down macro world building versus micro world building, because it's very important to know the difference between the two so that you're able to build on a universal level with ease. And so first we're going to talk about macro world building. And macro world building is the creation of a physical environment, right? That's like the basis of it. You're just creating an environment, in our case, a universe. And this is done on a universal level, a planetary level, a continental level, and a local level, right? Building macro is carving out the place before creating the people. So think like, for any of you who have read or currently read the Bible, think of Genesis, right? So we build out, in the book of Genesis, it starts out building very macro, right? You have just nothing, and then you have water, and then you have separation of lights, and then you have creating the plants and the animals and the fish and the birds and all that, and then we create the people. And so that is building on a macro level. I tend to do this a lot, especially with Eladel. And so for me, I start literally on a universal level, which is Eladel. And then I break it down into my, and then I break it down still on the universal level. I have my realms and dimensions, which are interchangeable. And then going into that, we go on a planetary level, all of the different planets that are in that particular realm. And then I go into a local level, kingdoms, provinces, and all that. And then you can break that down into minutia, right? Like the different, if you were to break it down, like for example, planet Earth, we have the planet, then we have our 7 continents, then we have whether it be kingdoms or states, depending on where you live. I live in the United States of America, so we have states over here. The 50 plus the US territories, and then within those states you have your counties, you have your cities, you have your counties, you have your towns, and then you have your local neighborhoods, right? So that's what I mean by on a macro level, and then bringing it down to a micro level. And so, and when we're building out a universe, we start on the macro level. And so when we're talking about what is macro world building, we're building the world from an overview standpoint. So it's basically the forest before the trees kind of thing, right? We're creating an environment so that your characters can live in. So rather than starting from your character and saying, okay, like now I need to flesh out, where do they live? What does it look like? Instead, you're taking care of all of that. And then you're putting characters in there that are conducive for the environment, right? And so we're creating an environment to live in before there's anyone to occupy and toil that land. Number 2, it directly correlates to the main driver of external conflicts for your characters, right? So that way it highlights the character's interaction with the world they live in. So when you're building macro, we're thinking of all the outside things that are affecting the characters in that world. Right. So we're not dealing with necessarily the character's perspective. We're dealing with the character's conditioning based on the environment that they live in. And that's what you're able to do when you're developing your characters, when you build on a macro level. And then also, it gives insight to what occurs throughout the land and the people groups within, which reveals the obstacles the main characters face in attempts to grow as they journey throughout the world. What does that mean? It means, is there war going on? Is there a change in politics and government? Is the educational system a certain way? Like these are the different kinds of things on a macro level that affect us, right? So maybe in the United States of America, right now, there's different, there are different elections that go on for Congress, for the House, and all of that. But then we're, now everybody's gearing up for the presidential elections that will be coming up in a couple of years, right? And so all of that affects everything, right? Because that they're trying to get us to vote, but then that also means like, okay, you're paying attention to everything that's going on in the world, what they do in education, what they do with foreign affairs, what they do, with on a governmental level, like the policies that they create and how that affects us. That's all a macro thing that affects us personally. And so it's the same way when you're building out your macro world, the government and education and, occupation, how do people get jobs and where do they work and things like that, that affects their external drives, right? Before it starts to conflict with their internal drives. So that is macro world building. Now let's talk a little bit about micro. Okay, so micro world building is the creation of the regional and local environment that directly affects the inhabitants of the world. So it defines the structures that create the cultures, traditions, and manners of life of the world. So now, this is very important because that deals with internal stuff, right? So I started off by saying I am Canadian, Haitian, and Congolese. So my father was Congolese, my mother is Haitian, and I was born in Toronto, but I was raised in the United States of America, even though I've lived in Haiti for 3 years. Okay. And so with that, for me, right, this is all on a micro level. The way I was raised, even though I was raised in South Florida, I was raised in a Haitian home. And so all of these little micro elements, right, the different cultural things that I picked up from Haitian principles within my home, even though I was going to American public schools and I was in American after school activities, all of that fed and conditioned my internal perspective and worldview. Okay. And so that's what we're talking about when we're dealing with micro world building. So number one, micro world building deals with what affects everyday life for the people groups to live in any environment. So whether you go to church, temple, mass, whatever the case that may be, if you go to private school, public school, charter school, if you're homeschooled, that's very different. Do you shop at, what kind of grocery stores do you shop at, right? Or do you only go to a farmer's market? Or do you have a farm? Or do you have a garden in your backyard? Like all of these kinds of things affect the internal perspective, right? The everyday life of the people group. And so when you're thinking about your characters, micro world building is what shapes your character's perspective and worldview. Number two, micro elements are aligned to the character's internal conflicts, which are based on character worldview and indoctrination. And then number three, they drive the elements that will craft the character journey and internal change along the way. So, me being raised in suburbia my entire life, like I lived in Haiti for 3 years. Like I was born in Canada, we moved to Florida, I went to Haiti for 3 years, came back to Florida, lived there for about 20, moved to Maryland, now I live in Georgia, right? And so all of these different things, they affected my journey. But the micro bits that affected me were the churches that I went to, the schools that I went to public school. When I was in Haiti, I went to private school, but when I lived in Florida, I went to public school, right? That that alone, if you take a child from private school versus a child from public school, two completely different individuals when they grow up, right? If you take a person that goes to a more quiet kind of church, if they go to church versus like a more animated kind of church, two completely different individuals. If you take an entrepreneur versus someone who works in corporate America, two completely different individuals, right? And so all of these little internal things, from a micro standpoint, and they affect the internal journey of your character. Is that cool? So I hope that makes sense. And then I'm seeing like a lot of Georgians here. What's up, y'all? I just got here to your side of the United States in 2021. I actually really love Georgia. Georgia's awesome. But I'm glad that makes sense. And now that you understand macro versus micro, we are going to talk about macro. When we're building on a universal level and bringing it down, we're going to macro. Okay, so now let's talk about breaking down a universe. So when you're breaking down your universe, use your own, meaning our universe, right? We live in expanding, we live in ever expanding space. Let's just, you know what I mean? So from macro to micro, just think about that, because I think if we have an example that we can base it off of, then it makes it easier when we're creating it for ourselves, right? Like when we're like, okay, I have this idea. I think I can create my own kind of Marvel cinematic universe. All right, cool. This is how my own universe that I live in as a human being on planet Earth in this ever expanding thing. This is what it looks like. Okay, cool. I can kind of use that to construct how I can create my own for my story. So always use what's around you as an example. It makes it a lot easier when you're trying to make everything up, which, full disclosure, I like to make stuff up. Understand me? um this is why I do not write sci-fi. It's too much research. It's too much work. Patty, you have to go. Well, thank you so much for joining while you could, and hopefully this will help you with the replay. But thank you for coming to hang while you could. I appreciate you. um but yes, so this is why I don't write sci-fi, y'all. No, sci-fi and certain thrillers and all that, you have to like actually do research and all that. I'm not a fan. I like to make stuff up, period. Which is why I write epic fantasy. Okay, because you can create your own structures and pillars and all that, and then you can just make everything up as you go. And so but using the universe we live in is a great example to just like pick some things out, and then you can go ahead and create your own universe from there. That's what I did with Elodel. I'm pretty sure that's what Stan Lee did with Marvel. I'm sure that's what Tolkien did with, Lord of the Rings. There's just too many worlds in that one. If for all of you who have read the Silmarillion, I'm still working on that book. It's a lot. And then that's just what people do when they're building like from such a massive standpoint, right? Without losing your mind. Because if you go too deep, you could lose your ever loving mind. You know what I mean? So from macro to micro, start with the expanse, which has no beginning or end, our ever expanding universe. Place a realm within, a solar system within. I'm gonna let y'all know right now. Now I added solar system in here just for the sake of, for anyone that might be like, yeah, but you have to have your solar system and then you can go further. I don't deal on this level. I literally go universe, realm, planets. I create my kingdoms with it. Okay. If you want to add a solar system in there, have at it. I'm not doing that. Okay. But I put that in there because I'm sure there are some people who would want to go that deep with it. Got your solar system in there, define your planets, and then begin crafting one world at a time. Okay. I do ocean lily, you do solar system. See, you see what I mean? So, so for me, I was like, let me throw that one in there, because even though I don't, because the way my patience is set up, we can't handle all of that. However, for those of you who have a better endurance when it comes to building out to the minutia, by all means, have your solar system in there too. Okay. And so here's my little drawing for y'all. It is as basic as it needs to be, because this is how we break it down. Okay. So we have our universe, then we have our universe, big. Then within we have our realms. I myself have multiple realms. Why I did that to myself, I will never know. Okay. I have multiple realms within my universe. Within that, you can have your systems. Stephanie has no systems. We go from realms to worlds. Okay. But you can have your systems in there. And then I have my worlds within. And then I go ahead and I build out one planet at a time. When I say world, I'm talking about planets. I build them out one at a time. So for me, what that would look like is we have Elodel, which is the universe, it ever expands. Then I have different realms within it. So I have Elvriel, I have Astrea, I have my Belial realms, which are like Shreyal and all that, which are like fallen angel realms. And then within those, I have my worlds. And so, for example, in my realm of Astrea, I have worlds Infernine, Teref, I have Sazion, all of these different worlds. And then within those worlds, like, so, for example, my Seraphim Resistance series, that starts off in Infernine, and that is broken down into provinces, not necessarily kingdoms, but provinces. And so Within there, I have Celesbriel, Selner, Isladiv, Conlethel, all of that. And so this is what I mean by going from that universal level and bringing it in to a planetary level. Okay, so now let's talk about how to break down. So for those of you that are like, yo, naming worlds is so hard, facts. Do you understand me? Facts. Here's a little pro tip, did not throw this in there. This is totally free. When I like to name anything from worlds to kingdoms to people to if I'm naming a sword, whatever the case may be, I like to look up the definitions of things and then name them after that. And so, for example, when I was naming, so I have a world that is predominantly occupied by angels with the powers of fire. And so, baby, Google is your best friend. Understand me? Google is your best friend. I went on in there and I said, names that mean fire. That's it. Names that mean fire. And then there's like a bunch of articles that will show up. Baby, go on and click several of them, okay? And then look through all of the names, and then I would just begin to pick out from there. And I like to stress my readers out with pronunciation. And so I will take a normal name and just fantasize it. Okay. I'll add a letter, I'll take out letters, I'll throw in an apostrophe, whatever the case may be. But that's what I will do. So like whatever the case, whatever I need to do, I have a series I'm about to release. It is based on angelic assassins versus Fey mobsters, and the world that they live in. While it's called the Bones Court, the actual name of it is Zodom. And so I would do Fey mobsters, yes, Fey gangsters, okay, mafia, like think the mafia, but they're Fey. And then the assassins are angels. So that world, I would look up like names that mean bones or names that mean dark or names that mean like that kind of thing. So that's my little tangent on names, because I know for us who write fantasy, it can be trash sometimes. Okay, so when we're breaking down world, when we have our universe, now we're going down to the level of realms. Okay, breaking down your realms. So first off, you want to determine the number of realms you plan to have in your universe at a maximum. I advise going on the low end, because baby, if you commit to the high end, that's a lot of work. And you will be like me, already so deep in your universe, and now you have to commit. Spare yourself if you can. Okay. So for me, I have like several realms, and then I have a ton of worlds in those realms. Go ahead and determine how many you want. You might say I only want one. I only want two. You might want 50, which Godspeed. Okay. Determine the number of realms you plan to have in your universe at a maximum so that you can go ahead and spare yourself. Then you want to go ahead and determine how the realms of the universe are positioned from one to another. So this, I didn't think it was important until I really got into digging in and I realized this was actually kind of important. And so you want to know, especially if you ever plan to have a map made of your universe, whether it be like a skeleton version of it, or if you, again, we're visual, we want to be able to see it. If you want to ever like put this on paper or just to be able to visualize it for yourself, you want to go ahead and think of like how they're positioned from one another. And what is a realm? It's just basically a pocket of space within an ever expanding universe. That's like the simplest way I can break it down without going into, you know, nebulas and black holes and meteorites and all that. Like, it's just a pocket of space. It's just a pocket of space within the ever expanding universe that has its own solar systems and its own planets and its own stars and all of that. Okay. If you want to break down like a realm in your minds for your fantasy universe. Okay. Because remember, we're not creating a world here. We're creating a universe. right? And so it can be a bit much to fathom because as humans, we don't even know all that is entailed within our own universe, right? And so when you're creating this for fantasy, um, don't pop any blood vessels by trying to think too much of it. But it, that's why I wanted to show you that little image, because it's just basically you have the overall, and then you have pockets of space within, worlds within, and kingdoms within that world. Does that make sense? Like that's the way to just bring it down to a way that will not overwhelm you when you go into building. So determine how the realms are positioned from one another. Then go ahead and determine what worlds are in each realm. Okay. And I just told you about how I break that down, right? So my universe is Eladel. The realm is Astrea. The world in that realm, I have 8 so far that I'm fleshing out. Infernine, Frosteros, Lumiel, Scryl, Gemereth, all of these worlds. And then within each of these worlds, they're broken down into provinces and kingdoms and courts and so on and so forth. Okay, and determine connectivity, if any, between the realms and the means of traveling between them. Now, and this is something I'm going to highlight again when I go further into this presentation, and I'm already fasting, running out of time. My goodness. Okay. As for me, my characters are angels, like the vast majority. I am now introducing fae and all these kinds of other, and that's also on a limited standpoint. Like, and when I say my characters are angels, like I don't have humans in my world, you know what I'm saying? Like like, and I did that on purpose because I really wanted to create something that was truly from the perspective, like it's not like angels serving humans or angels ministering to humans or angels having to take care of you. Like it is solely angels, which means there's a lot of room for me to play are the Fae Black as well. Vast majority, yes. And I did that not because I'm trying to be on one. I did that because I just really wanted to see myself in fantasy. So, don't get me wrong, Tolkien is one of my favorite, like king of fantasy to me, okay? However, because I have the ability to create a world for those that look like me to be able to see themselves through certain characters and in certain stories, that's why I went ahead and did it. That's why I have some worlds that will be based off the Caribbean islands, because I am Caribbean. And so on and so forth. And I also have like different languages in there. English is my third language. French was first. Haitian Creole was second. And so I have different like terminology in my stories, because I do have different languages per angelic rank that are in the books. If you speak French, you could pick it out. If you speak Creole, you could pick it out. And some of them are based off Swahili and Lingala and all that too. But yes, so go ahead and see, because that's what I was saying. So because my characters are angels, when it talks about traveling between the worlds, they can either travel by chariot, they can travel by portal, or they can just straight up fly. That's how that works for me and how I have done it for Eladel. They can fly, they can leave the atmosphere of one world and fly to another. They can go from bridges that link some of these worlds to one another, and they can take a chariot across, or they can go from a portal in one world and travel to another world just by going through the portal. Okay, so that's what I mean by determine how modes of transportation is between your worlds. Determine how many suns there are, if that is important to you. Some of my worlds, they function based off of there being 3 suns, 7 suns, 3 moons, so on and so forth. That's why I also have don't leave the moon out also. Is there only one or are there multiple? In some of my books, I believe in this book right here. So this is my latest release, The Court of Dreams and Stars. This is based off Ruth and Boaz meets Beauty and the Beast. This one has like 3 suns, I think. I'm forever world building, so I can never keep all the details, which is why I have so many spreadsheets. This one has like 3 suns and I think like 3 moons also, or it's probably like, yeah, 3 suns, 3 moons. But in my Seraphim books, it's like 3 suns and maybe 1 moon or something like that. So, and that's the Court of Dreams and Stars. I can talk about that later if y'all care. And then determine if the realm has a beginning or end. And I say that to say, okay, back to this little book right here. So this is set in my realm called Elvriel in a world called Gavaed. Okay. And in this book, as they are traveling from one kingdom to another, I mention that as they're traveling, they're able, on one side, they're able to see like the geographical land of the planet that they live in. But on the other side, they are able to actually see into outer space and all of that. And because they are angels, I give them, you know, extreme sight, extreme hearing, that kind of thing. And so they're able to project their vision to like miles upon miles upon miles upon miles away in space. And so in the book, The Court of Dreams and Stars, there's actually a reference to, oh, hey, what's that veil? Like, what's that shining light veil over there? And they do reference how that is a veil that separates the realms. And so if you go beyond that veil, if you fly all the way out to that veil and you cross through that veil, you are now in a completely different realm. And so that's how I go ahead and that's one way that I went and tackled the whole separation of that. Okay. So you can do that. You don't have to. Okay. Like, don't ever do anything. One thing that I love to explain when it comes to world building, never do anything that will stress you out. Fantasy is supposed to be fun. Okay, let me just go ahead and interject that right now. Fantasy is supposed to be fun. So if it's going to overwhelm you, I highly encourage you just let it go. Okay, don't even include it if it's about to stress you out. It's not worth it. Like, we do this because we also want to have fun. We want to enjoy what we're doing. We want to have a good time as we do it. And then we want to give our readers something that they can enjoy as well. If you're not enjoying it, there's no point in it. And so you don't want to if getting too technical will be too much, there's no need to get too technical. However, if you like and enjoy getting technical, baby, live your best life. Live your best life. Understand me? Okay. So that's what it is when it comes to building a realm. Now let's talk about creating our worlds. Okay. Let's talk about building our worlds. I'm going to take a swig of water because my throat is dry. Okay. So let's talk about creating your worlds. Whew, yes, y'all, I had to hydrate. Christy, I appreciate you, Christy. Look at you showing me some love in these comments. I appreciate you. Let's talk about our world. So pick a realm. Okay, pick a realm. In my case, let's say I choose Estrella as one of the realms that I want to flesh out now. Now, I told y'all my realm of Estrella has 8 worlds thus far in it. Okay, so determine the number of worlds you want to have, and then determine how the worlds in this realm are positioned from one another. The way I kind of do it, so the way I have the worlds in Estrella, I have like one center massive planet like right in the middle, and then the rest of them kind of like circle around that main massive planet, and you can kind of just, so you have that one planet which is, it's called Lumiel, and it is based off of light. Okay, anything about me, you'll know I do a whole lot of like light versus darkness type stuff. Okay, good angels versus fallen angels, all of that. And so for me, I have like my center planet, which is based off of light. These are angels of light. They are able, like, their powers are based out of light. Their world is very bright, like all of that. And so that's a massive world at the center. And then I have like all of these other planets around it. Infernine's over here, Fosteros is over here, that kind of thing. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but that's how they're centered around each other. Just makes a lot of sense in my brain. Okay, so go ahead and do that for yourself, because baby, you don't want to stress yourself out talking about some, oh well, I'll have a planet over here and a planet over here and a planet over here. How, Sway? That does not make no type of sense, and you're going to stress yourself out and give yourself a migraine. We don't want to do that. You want to make it very simple. Okay, you want to make it real simple and digestible for yourself. Okay, so go ahead and make it nice and easy, and then determine what differentiates these worlds from each other. You know, are they separated by powers? Are they based off of powers, or are they based off of deities, etc.? For me, mine are based off of powers. That means one planet is mainly angels who have the abilities of water. Another planet is mainly angels with the abilities of fire. Another planet is angels with the abilities of creating jewels and gems and gemstones. Okay, Gemereth. It's just a bunch of crystals and jewels and all that. One planet is based off of Earth, Terra. So it's very. I'm watching this chat. Who here has, drop a one if you've ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender? Drop a one. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Who here actually had a good childhood? No, I'm playing. I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking. Okay, y'all, y'all have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender. Listen, Avatar was lit, okay? Like Avatar was great. So when it comes to these particular planets, that is how I created my world. Gary said greatest cartoon ever, period. Okay. And so that is how I created these particular worlds. Other worlds are not the same, but these particular worlds, I decided I'm gonna base them off of elements, because the majority of these planets have seraphims, cherubims, archims, which are archangels, and anglins, which are like the bottom of the totem pole. I have 12 angelic ranks, okay, and all of them have different powers and all these kinds of things. Seraphims and all that, they're elemental. They have more elemental powers, and so on and so forth. I definitely just opened up a can of worms by asking that question, because I am looking at these comments. Okay, and so you can go ahead and do that, or if you want to base your worlds off of like different gods and stuff. And so if you like go back into the history of like Greece and stuff like that, a lot of everything that they created is based off of what? A god, right? Sun god, god of war. Like look at Mars and Jupiter and all these things, right? So you can go ahead and decide like what you want to do. Do you want to base it off of a power? Do you want to base it off of a deity? Or do you want to base it off of something different? Okay, when you're building out your worlds and your realms. And then we want to talk about defining chosen species and races. And I gave you a whole bank out here in case you only thought of like 5 different kinds of mythical creatures that you could do. There's a whole lot. Now, my characters are angels because, baby, I was raised in church my whole life, and angels fascinate me, okay? And so growing up, I've always been fascinated by angels. I've always wanted to know more about angels. I've always wanted to like understand like why are they here? And I was the kid that would irritate my Sunday school teachers because they'd be like, oh yeah, you know, angels, they come and they serve humans. In my head, I'm like, hold on, you got all that power and all you do is serve humans? So I was that kid that used to get on my Sunday school teacher's nerves. Okay, so like, cause that don't make no type of sense. Like, how do you have all that knowledge, all that power, and all you do is cater to humans? So for me, I love angels. They are just, I love studying them. I love reading about them. I love learning about them. And so all my characters are angels. Now, for those of you that are like, yeah, bump angels, I don't really care. There are so many different kinds of mythical characters that you can use in your world, okay? Dragons, giants, goblins, elves, unicorns, werewolves, centaurs, orcs, satyrs. English is my third language. I cannot pronounce this word. Satyrs. I'm just gonna go with satyrs, okay? Trolls, leprechauns, selkies, griffins, dwarves, wyverns, fae, pixies, hobbits, cyclops, gnomes are so weird, but here we have it. Dryads, mages, ogres, ogres, sprites, drakes, seers, enter tree folk, salamanders, pegasuses. I have those. Imps, nymphs, and phoenixes, okay? There's a lot more than that. This is what I gave you. So you can create worlds. You can, and here's your options, right? When you're creating your world, are you going to have a world where, let's say, the main species are orcs, right? Kind of like how the main species on planet Earth is what? Humans. Okay. And then you have like different species that'll be in there, or if you have like, you have different like orc hybrids and things like that. You can think of these things. For me, like I said, they are angels. I have 12 ranks of them, because when you're dealing with angels, you're dealing with ranks. You're not just dealing with random different species. And then within each rank, I have like different hybrids or descendants of these particular ranks. So for example, seraphims, right? But then I will have like a species that is within the seraphim rank, but that is like that is either like mixed with a different rank of angel. So if you had a transcendent and a seraphim have a child, now you have an angel with transcendent and seraphim blood, and then they go and they create now they start populating. Now you have all of these half seraphims, half transcendents, right? So things like that. When you're building out your world, you want to think about that. Like, what's going to be your primary species, and then what will you build around that? Okay, so go ahead and think about that. Y'all are this chat is hilarious to me. Y'all are awesome. You guys are on fire today, period. All right, and then you want to establish different powers. This is just talking about like magic and all that. Okay, what is that going to look like in your world? Okay, and I actually have some ideals for you. I actually have just about all of these throughout the different worlds that I am slowly establishing through all of the books that I am publishing in my universe of Elida. Okay, so we have elemental. There we go. Sorry, fixing my laptop here. So we have elemental, we have manipulation powers, we have artistic powers. Y'all, I'll tell you about artistic. Let me tell you about artistic, okay? Because I love artistic powers. And so in my seraphim books, I'm so excited because I've decided that my rank of the angelic rank called cherubim in all of my angelic ranks, they have artistic powers. Do you know what that means? That's like dance and music and poetry and painting and art. Do you know how amazing that is? And so in the one of my books is called Seraphim Burning. At the end, you have a cherubim, which is called a brusher, a brusher, and she will paint a portrait, and the portrait she paints is a legitimate world, and she can fly into it, or she can put people into it and then trap them in there. Do you know how much chaos you can create with artistic powers? Phenomenal. So that's what I mean by artistic. If you're like, what does that mean? Energy, psionic, channeling, omni powers, metaphysical powers, constructs, all of that. Okay. I love the chaos. I love the chaos too. I think cherubims are probably one of my most chaotic rank of angels, because they're just, I just needed a group. I needed a rank of angels that was nothing but like pranksters. They take nothing serious. And they're full of pranksters. Now they're very loyal to each other, and they're very loyal to who they're loyal to, but they're a bunch of pranksters, man. And they're so creative. Angels after my own heart. So that's what I mean by these powers. And you can go ahead and think about these different elements that you want to create in your world, what kinds of these that you want to use in the Court of Dreams and Stars, which is right there. So the main character, Jeriel, she is a transcendent. She is an angel of transcendent rank, and she has a power that is called oh my goodness, why is it escaping me right now? Y'all ever have something right in your head, and then right when you're about to say it, it like disappears from your brain? Grief mending. There we go. She is a grief mender. And so what that means is when an angel is dealing with a lot of grief and pain and sorrow to the point of nearly death, right? Because how many of us know that there are people who have died of a broken heart? Okay. And so she comes in and she's able to go into this spiritual landscape where she's able to essentially like go into their heart and into their mind and see where the root of their grief is metaphysically. She's able to go into there. And then she goes and she heals their grief at the root. Okay. She is a grief mender. That's what she does. Now she's not able to heal her own grief, which is insane. Because we always have to have a weakness somewhere, right? And so she's not able to hear her own grief, but she is able to heal the grief of others. And so that's a medical physical power that she has. She's a grief mender. Now, let's build out some constructs, okay? I unfortunately will not be able to break all of this down because there's so much. So I'm just gonna have to like read these out for y'all and then like try to break it down. You understand me? So first we're gonna talk about powers. Again, that's whatever you want to call it. Magic. So in Elodel, good powers are called Ether, and then evil powers are called magic. That's how I separate the two. And that also helps the readers to know, is this a good angel or a bad angel? And like I kind of like sprinkle that in there so that it helps them like to pick up on some context clues and be like, yo, this person's lying. You know what I mean? Just like to do that for my readers. So I could listen to you for the rest of the day. I appreciate y'all. You know what I mean? I could kick it with y'all all day too. I appreciate y'all. But that's what I do. And so this is for powers. And these are all of the things that you need to break down when you're creating your magic system. In case you didn't know. Okay. Okay. This is everything that you need to know when you're breaking down your magic system. So you need to know the origins, you need to know the purpose, you need to know the tiers, you need to know the wielders, you need to know the limitations, the barriers, the dangers, the fears, the ultimate price. As universe builders, all of this is important. Okay, all of this is important because if not, you're going to run into a lot of plot holes. Ask me how I know. Okay. Like I would create a power and I would know like the wielders and I would know the purpose and maybe like the limitation. I didn't know anything else. And maybe it came to bite me in the behind. Okay. So then I had to go back and flesh it all out so that my readers aren't like tripping in my reviews. Because they won't tell you anything in private, but they will come for you in your reviews. Why? On Amazon of all places. So I have learned the hard way. Just do the work. Just flesh it out, okay? So you know what you're doing, these characters know what they're doing, and the readers know what's up. And so when you're fleshing out your magic system, these are all the things you want to know. And then when you are building out a world, and this is the part that is like, I would need another several hours with y'all. This is the part where you need to break all of this down when building your world. If you want to have a world that is built thoroughly, like you're not just throwing spaghetti out the wall and seeing what sticks, okay? When it comes to actually knowing all of the things so that you can have these Easter eggs from one world to another and one power to another and one kingdom to another, just have them have just like this nice like togetherness, right? You got to know all this stuff, okay? Your realms and your realms and dimensions and the worlds that are in it, the kingdoms and or the provinces or the courts that are in that. When I say courts, I mean like, let's say you have a book with a bunch of fae in it, right? The autumn court, night court, day court, so on and so spring court, so on and so forth. It's giving. I just gave y'all like all of A Court of Thorns and Roses from Sarah J. Maas, okay? But all of that, you want to know the origins of all things. You want to know the historical foundations. You want to know the breakdown of civilization, government, money, education, language, religion, standard, and cultural norms. Okay. These are all the things that you need to break down. I can't even touch it because time is far spent. However, I want you to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. It is a lot. However, you're going to have this presentation at your leisure to be able to go back and just sit with it when it comes to building out a universe. Okay. World building, especially on a universal level, is a massive undertaking and a huge labor of love. Okay. A huge labor of love. Because a lot of this stuff won't even end up in your books. Spoiler alert. So because of that, that's why I said, if you're not having fun, scratch it, because it won't even end up in your novel. You know what I'm saying? So if it's going to make you upset, don't even bother going down that rabbit hole. It's a huge undertaking. However, it's worth it. Like, I can't even, it is so worth it, especially if you're baking something that's huge. Remember, we're not talking kingdoms here. We're talking about a universe. If you're building something that is huge, you want to take the time to do the work. It is worth it for the reader experience that your readers will get. It is worth it for you. You will absolutely, y'all, when I write my books, I am lost. Like, I am so ingrained in the story. By the time I stop writing, I'm like, oh, I'm back in Georgia. Okay. You know what I mean? And so it's a huge labor of love. My final advice to you is approach it in the way that is best for you, regardless of someone else says, oh, well, you should do this or you should, because do what's best for you. What is fun? What makes sense? What can you process? What do you have the capacity for? Like, do only that and create that. And so I enjoyed my time with y'all. Thank you for coming. I did not get a chance to even answer your questions. So I do believe there's the hub where y'all chit chat. I will go ahead and hop on in there and answer y'all's questions in there. I don't mind doing that because I know I run my mouth for a long time. I talk so much and then I don't get to like answer questions. So I am more than happy to hop in there and answer all of y'all's questions. Y'all have been awesome. This chat has been lit. Thank you
For being so great,
so awesome.
Thank you so much. Everyone in the chat has just been loving your whole presentation and all of your energy, and it was just so great. I did drop those links in the chat for you all again. If you haven't joined us in the community hosted on Circle, please do so. That is where Stephanie is going to hop on in the live event chat, and she will answer your questions. So I'll make a post in there. I'll pin it, and you all can start posting your questions for Stephanie in the comments, and she'll come in and answer them as she has time. But thank you so much. Make sure you follow Stephanie on Instagram, check out her website, check out her books. She has a lot to offer. So we have another event coming up in an hour. So we hope to see you there. And thank you all so much for being here.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.